Welcome to Massive Beers. My name is Matt. We do the beer stuff here. Ecliptic, a little ecliptic up in this piece. They're Italian, or Italian, if you're being specific, style Pilsner. This is part of their Moon Room series, which I guess it probably explains it over here, but just from memory, it seems like it's their kind of just like lager experimental series, maybe. I don't know. Let's just read the label. Anyway, it says 2023 Brewing Moon Room series in our ode to all things lager beer. There you go. We figured it out. This delicate and crisp as expected in the modern Pilsner. Italian style Pilsners are defined by an extra burst of hop aroma and flavor via dry hopping. Ecliptic spin on this style includes Tettnang, Saphir, and Azaz hops. Pretty traditional, 5.2%. Done. All their Moon Room series are the exact same stylings as far as label design goes. Not necessarily a bad thing. This actually just arrived a couple days ago. Sometimes I can get to these beers a little quicker than others. You're gonna throw a Italian style Pilsner at me, I'm probably gonna get to it a little bit quicker. So yeah, label, it's aight. Beer wise, this nice sweet dimpled mug. It looks all the part of a craft Pilsner, because what I mean by a craft Pilsner, it is relatively clear. That's technically hazy beer if you really want to get to it, but as far as lagers go, that's very clear for a craft kind of lager. White as white could be head. I'm getting like a big like mango tropical fruit juice aroma from a distance. I don't know if that's just like suggestive anything, but I'm getting it. So I'll give it a little bit of a whirl. See if we can get a nose. Okay, I'm really curious what this is going to taste like, because I am getting this kind of mango kind of thing from a distance from it, but also up close. But I really dive into it, I get a little bit of buttery vibes. Probably more like cream corny, so it's probably DMS as opposed to diacetyl. But there's a little something on nose. It could totally not be there in the taste. But there's this fruit portion of the show here. This tropical mango-y thing that's probably that Zaz really bringing that to the head. And there's a sweet maltiness, but there is that little bit of like a cream corny kind of vibe to it. Very, very subtle though. It's kind of almost nitpicky. Definitely doesn't come off as negative on the nose, let's put it that way. We're just going to dive right in. Cheers, y'all. Yeah, you really don't get any of that kind of cream corniness. That works in a couple different ways. On the actual taste itself, it really does come off as a crisp, snappy Pilsner with a nice, decent pop to it as far as bittering goes, and that bit more of a melon for me, not more than mango. Melon characteristic, actually, on the taste. And that's pretty much it. It's very much Czech Pils for me. It doesn't really come off as an Italian Pilsner for me. It gives a subtle melon vibe, a pop of bitterness, crisp and cleanliness, done and done. What I'm looking for in Italian Pilsner is just a little bit more, oddly enough, an Americanized version of it. Listen, Pivo Pils, or Tipo Pils, sorry. That's the OG. You know, then you have the Pivo Pils over here by Firestone Walker, and then everybody rushes off that. So it really is an Italian Pilsner that was really just kind of glommed. It's almost like pizza, you know, like the Americans just took it and called it an Italian Pilsner, even though it's more of an American Pilsner than an Italian Pilsner, if you really think about it. So I think about that more kind of Americanized kind of twist and version on it to really make it an Italian Pilsner, and this really does come off as just kind of like a slightly melony, because you can get that from Zaz, slightly more melony kind of version of a Czech Pilsner. We're kind of splitting hairs. It's a very tasty beer, very drinkable, very chuggable. Pretty clean, pretty crisp. It's not ultra snappy, but it's a snappy beer. And honestly, you're talking about something that's coming off at what? Well, 5.2, a little higher ABV than I'd want. 5.2 is appropriate for the style. It's a really tasty beer. These lagers I've gotten from Ecliptic have really pretty much been kind of stellar across the board. So it's one of those things where, you know, for a brewery that I think is a little bit kind of floating in no man's land, floating a little bit in limbo when it comes to kind of like who they are. You know, as far as, you know, moving the needle when it comes to Ecliptic, I don't see a lot of people talking about them. They're almost like in that kind of Bell's kind of, not as big as Bell's obviously, but that kind of like, everybody knows they exist, they're craft, but they don't have this kind of cachet to them when it comes to kind of the new craft beer game, for the lack of a better analogy. And while some of their beers and some of their collabs can be misses for me from time to time, more often than not they're hits. Their collabs are really, really, really fun. They do quite a bit of them. Not so much in the lager side of things, but in their hazies and a couple different things. They did Russian River collab that was absolutely fantastic for me. But this lager series they're doing with this Moonroom series, I think is some of the better kind of series of lagers that have come out of the craft industry. Now, with that being said, price point is kind of where this kind of really separates the yeses from the miss for me. I don't know pricing on this. Ecliptic always sends off media material with all their beers. I throw it away essentially because I don't want to kind of read anything about the beer before I review it. I should probably keep one, maybe. Actually, I probably have one floating around here. Is this it? Okay, this is it. But they don't give me a price point. That's what I really want to know on this, because you're giving me an Italian Pilsner that's really tasty, really chuggable in a 16-ounce can. You're giving this to me at $12? 13, even. We can even inch toward 14, but 13 is probably the sweet spot. I'm buying this. This is 15, 16. I'm probably feeling, probably not. And that's kind of like the razor thin margin when it comes to a lot of these craft lagers. And I understand, you know, tank time, you know, the lagering process takes quite a bit longer. You can turn and burn hazies and things like that quite a bit faster. Quite a bit less ingredients here, so there's a little bit of a trade-off. But that's kind of where it really does lie for me, is price point. Because you can make the best lager in the world. Stainless lager. You know, you get into foeders and things like that. You know, you start inching towards $15, $16, $17. Fine. We're talking a different ballgame there, but a classic, you know, just kind of stainless lager. Let's say we're fermenting no more than a month, a little less, hopefully. I really do need this to come in at a price point that's kind of more digestible for me. For me to pick up. I don't know where you sit. I don't know if you're, you know, one of those new money white collar dude bros that have all the new monies and all that stuff, and you can buy whatever you want. That's a whole different ball game. But for me, this is like, if I see this for $13 or less, I want it to be less. I want it to be $13 in a sixer of 12-ounce cans. That's really where I want this to be. But if you give it to me at that price point, I'm buying it. If you go above it, I'm probably not, outside of the initial purchase and curiosity. So that's where beer in of itself kind of, not jumps the shark, but separates itself in the conversation of, am I buying it? Am I drinking it? All that kind of stuff. So I think that's a better conversation to have, whether this beer is really good, because it is. But it's that price point. So here where we dip into it. Is it one of the better Italian Pilsners I've had as late? Sure, fine, whatever. It's one of the better Pilsners general I've had as late. Yes, they're all in the conversation. Not Mount Rushmore status, but very tasty stuff. The value and availability that we talk about, that's really where this kind of sits, and it kind of goes into the second portion of the show when I talk about breweries and beers and all that stuff. Have you had Ecliptic stuff? Have you had their beers? Have you been to the brewery? What do you pay for Ecliptic stuff? Have you had this particular beer? If you did, what did you pay for it? I really need to know. I can go on the internet and find out, but I want to hear from y'all down there. All that fun stuff. So, there we go. Italian Pils in the books. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you're drinking a chugger right now. Hope to see you next time. Cheers, y'all.